you struggle to commit to things in life, right? To living in a particular country sometimes, to living in a house, to buying a house, to signing contracts. You know, for me, it even showed up as I didn't work in a permanent job for the best part of, 12 or so years. I just wanted this freedom, right? I just wanted to be free. But the impact on you of this hot and cold is that you feel really guilty. You feel really bad often because you can see how badly you treat people. You treat the women you're with. You feel really guilty. And it kind of reinforces a belief that might exist for you, right? That there's something bad about you. I think a lot of men have this now. When I speak to, there's this some belief in them that I am bad. And I believe one of the causes of this, it's not the sole cause, is just the general negative rhetoric about men, that men are bad. We grew up, learning that we're bad in some way because we hear it everywhere. Men are trash, men are rapists, men are predators, like, oh, he's just being a man, all these things. I think we internalize that. And I've been meaning to look into see if there's some studies around that. I did have a quick look not long ago and I saw how it helps if a boy grows up in a house where there's lots of man bashing and negative views on men, then it can affect his self-esteem. So this is something I see, and it feeds into this, I am bad, there's something wrong with me, right? That underlying belief. And I say this isn't like positive beliefs that you have when you're feeling good about yourself and happy about your life. This is when you start to question when you're feeling, the voice, the kind of inner critic, when it's talking to you when you make a mistake, when you do something wrong, the way it talks to you and the beliefs that it holds. So it kind of erodes away at your confidence. It erodes away at your self-esteem. It erodes away at those legs. Yeah. What did I say about legs? The commitment muscle. Because you don't do it, because you always avoid it, you don't even know how to do it. Right. And some of the guys I meet, what happens is they actually find themselves then on the receiving end of this behavior, right? The hot, cold behavior. And sometimes that can be a big catalyst for change. But often they really struggle in that because they don't have the kind of emotional capacity to find groundedness, right, in it, right? Because that's another part of this kind of practice is this thinking instead of feeling. Yeah, the thing you do here, this hot and cold, on and off, half in, half out, is thinking instead of feeling, right? And negative projection. So this is more impact on you. It's like there's always this negative projection of how things are going to be. There's an assumption of negativity. There's even a view on seeing things in the relationship, in the person you're dating. You see the negative aspects of what they're doing far more than the positives, right? And you overweight on those negatives as well. It's something you're doing. And then there's another impact is that you probably look back, right, in the past with some limerence, which is kind of like this mild obsession of like, oh my God, that woman I dated a year ago, she was perfect for me. Why did I mess it up? How did I do that? I'm going to try and get her back. Or you just fantasize about them, right? This is something I've known guys who looking back 10, 15 years to women, right? So this is a really important aspect is like noticing there's a part of you that's always like, oh, in hindsight, you can see how shitty your behavior was and how you were caught in overthinking or you were just making things up. But in the moment, you can't see it. All you can see is the bullshit. All you can see is the story, the negativity and everything, right? So what underpins this, right? As I've mentioned, underpinning this is definitely avoidant attachment. I'd say this is one of the primary patterns of avoidant men. I say this as a former avoidant man or recovering avoidant man, whatever phrasing you prefer. And I don't use avoidance as something negative, right? I coach avoidant men. I've got a whole program for them, breaking the chains of avoidance, which is a program I've run 3 times now, guiding avoidant men into secure ways of being, into secure attachment, helping them communicate, open up, express themselves, and so forth. And if that's something you're really interested in, really tackling this, I'm running that again in September, starting on the 24th. And if you're interested, then you probably want to get in contact with me now because space is going to fill up. It's limited spaces. It's an amazing program. And we can have a conversation about that because just listening to podcasts and reading books isn't going to solve your problem. And as I'll mention in this. So one of the underpin things is avoidant attachment, which is about kind of leaning away from intimacy and closeness at its basic level. That's the kind of thing, leaning away from togetherness. But inside of the avoidant attachment, one of the things we really over-index on, and I particularly avoid it, men, is this freedom. If I can be free, then I can be happy. Yeah, because usually what experience is that at some point we felt some level of lack of freedom in our lives, usually childhood, right? And we hated, we felt bound, we felt burdened, and we don't want to feel like that way. And often some of that freedom is we don't want to burden other people. It's a very common thing as well, right? But we have this myth that if I'm free, then I can do what I want and then I'll be happy, right? And I can tell you, as someone who at one point in my life, I was so free that time wasn't a restriction to me and money wasn't a restriction to me. And I wasn't a millionaire by any stretch of imagination, but I was traveling around the world and I was in South America and I had tens of thousands of pounds in my bank account and I was in South America. I could basically do what I wanted in South America. You know, I didn't need to buy a house there. I was staying in hotels and hostels and I could go out and eat and wherever I wanted to. And my whole perception of my life started to shift. Right. But most people never get to time and money independence because time and money are the things that actually hold us in our Western society, especially. Right. So there's this myth of freedom. Oh, if I can be free, I can be happy. And if I commit, then that's going to remove freedom from my life. I'm not going to be able to sleep with who I want. I'm not going to be able to go and do what I want or go be where I want. Right. That is this myth that freedom will lead to happiness, and commitment erodes at freedom. Right. And I'm here to tell you an update is like when you are so focused on freedom and doing whatever you want, you don't commit to anything, which means there's no depth and it's just lots of shallow experiences. I'll say that again. When you don't commit to anything, right, you sit on the fence constantly and you miss out on the depth of experience that's available when you go in. You know, whether that's a relationship, you're probably seeing your friends getting married, having kids, going on holiday, having adventures, doing up houses, and you're still stuck renting a house, for instance, renting a room, still going on lots of first, second, third dates. You're having this, you're on repeat. You literally got a song on repeat, which is shallow life experiences, right? And it's not a judgment. I did this for many years and they can feel tweaked and interesting, right? Sleeping with different women, having different bars and clubs, but you lack the depth of really going in. And if you see this half in, half out in your career, because I did this, I was a contractor and I did the same job in different places for the best part of 10 years. But I had the same job title pretty much, right? And then I was seeing my peers, people I like worked with, and I see them now, they're like director of testing, director of engineering, you know, all sorts of things like that, because they went deep, because they committed, right? And now I'm seeing for myself, like I'm in a relationship and my relationship is probably one of the most free relationships that people have designed, but this is by design, right? You know, I went to Thailand with some friends earlier this year and me and all had a conversation. It's like, cool, you're in Thailand, great. Right? I want to, you know, go to the gym 3 times a week. I'm going to the gym 3 times a week. And I've got a little boy, right? Commitment doesn't remove freedom, right? It does remove choices. Like I'm not going to go and sleep with 15 women next month, right? Because I've chosen not to, because I've chosen to go deeper into this thing, right? So freedom actually keeps life shallow. And commitment gives us deeper experiences of life, right? And this can be really hard for us to understand because when we're on this trap of like, should I commit, should I not commit to this person? We think that staying on the fence will lead to an answer, but it doesn't. It leads to a non-answer, which is an answer in itself, but it leads to this neutrality, unsureness, but it actually leads to you creating the very dynamic for a terrible relationship because you create no safety. Your connection is inconsistent. You're untrustworthy. You're unreliable, right? You probably don't communicate enough. Yeah. And those are the things that someone who's dating you is going to be like, that's not what I want in a partner.